Delving deeper into China's Victory Day parade this week, we take a look at how the closely watched scenes are being interpreted here in Seoul. The gathering of the leaders of North Korea, China, and Russia sent a strong signal across the region, and their diplomacy could have major impact here on the Korean Peninsula. For more on this, we have our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young in the studio with us. Welcome, Soo-young.
Hi, and it's great to be back here.
So, Soo-young, this was the first time in 66 years that the leaders from three sides got together in Beijing. Let's start with the significance of that.
Sure, Inji. So on Wednesday, the leaders of North Korea, China and Russia put on a united front throughout China's major military parade. It was a show of force unseen since the days of the Cold War and certainly hardened present-day fault lines in the Indo-Pacific region, directed towards South Korea's strengthened trilateral cooperation with the United States and Japan.
China and Russia have openly declared that they intend to advance a so-called multipolar international order, which will all revolve around the global south, BRICS, and Eurasian states. Their gathering reflected that push. Second, it signaled a countermessage to the U.S. and the West, considering the recent South Korea-U.S. summit and their solidarity with Japan, reinforcing bloc confrontation in the region.
For Kim Jong-un, it also underscored his push for recognition of North Korea as a nuclear power, and his inspection of a missile production factory before travelling to China appears intended for such projection, as his on-site visit was reported by state media for foreign distribution, but not circulated domestically.
Right, and it was also Kim's first attendance at a multilateral event, and he even brought his young daughter Jue to Beijing, right?
Yes, that was really interesting. And it was, again, the occasion did mark Kim Jong-un's first participation in a gathering of many world leaders, a notable departure from the one-on-one summits that have defined his diplomacy so far. Now, we saw him hold summits with President Xi and President Putin, and also engage with other state officials, even inviting the leader of Belarus to Pyongyang and shaking hands with South Korea's National Assembly Speaker Won Sik. Now, this all appears to show that the North Korean leader is ready for more active diplomacy, with newfound confidence, it seems, in his coalition with Beijing and Moscow. Now, what's more, as you mentioned, he's taken his daughter under his wing, it seems. We saw the scene of him arriving at Beijing railway station with his teenage daughter Kim Jue in tow, receiving treatment akin to North Korea's #2, and some view this as a clear succession signal.
When Kim Jong-un turned 8 years old, his father tapped him as his successor. However, as he was not given sufficient diplomatic training, he remained a leader of an isolated state until he participated in the summits with China, South Korea, and the United States in 2018. Determined not to pass down this unfortunate experience to his daughter, Kim Jong-un seems to have brought her to China, firmly resolved to introduce her early onto the diplomatic stage and provide her with systematic training.
Well, some believe that Kim Jue is not the heir in training, but simply there as an iconic figure for the regime, like a member of the royal family. Of course, only time will tell whether she will succeed him or not, but her presence there was entirely unexpected and entirely interesting.
And Seoul and Washington hope to revive the dialogue with Pyongyang. What are the chances of that?
For now, Pyongyang really has very little incentive to talk, as it benefits from Russia's war in Ukraine, with troop deployments and arms supplies exchanged for economic and diplomatic returns.
If the war ends quickly, U.S.-North Korea dialogue will draw closer, and in that extension, inter-Korean dialogue cannot be ruled out. But if the war drags on for a long time, North Korea will continue pressuring the South under a hostile two-state framework. Also, while the U.S. and North Korea may exchange signals of interest, North Korea will demand actual policy changes, such as an end to the hostile policy. If this tug-of-war continues, inter-Korean and U.S.-North Korea dialogue will both take considerable time.
At the same time, the potential end of the Ukraine war could mean that Kim has to keep his options open. This means shoring up ties with China and pressing for deeper economic cooperation.
From Kim's perspective, it would be the North Korean-style division of labor. The economy from China, security from Russia, reaping benefits from both. Still, if talks to end the Ukraine war do take place and move forward, U.S.-North Korea dialogue could open up. In that dialogue, North Korea would seek to leverage China's backing to pressure the U.S. This reflects a calculated diplomatic strategy.
For South Korea and the U.S., China adds another layer of complexity.
China's decision to invite Kim underscores its role as a key player in Korean Peninsula and regional affairs, displaying Beijing's firm influence on the North. The message is that Seoul and Washington must maintain amicable ties with China if they want to improve relations with the North.
It's a leverage Xi Jinping clearly flaunted as he elevated Kim Jong-un's treatment with special protocol in Tiananmen Square. Now, there is also speculation that Kim may have consulted with Xi Jinping about the possibility of reviving dialogue with Washington, just as he did in 2018.
Right, and South Korea is aiming to get China on board. How is this working out?
Well, South Korea, as you know, is hosting the APEC leaders meeting this October in Gyeongju and hopes to see the leaders of the US, China and even North Korea there. Attending the Victory Day parade instead of President Lee Jae-myung, though, National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik has invited Xi Jinping to APEC once again. And it remains unclear, though, whether the Chinese leader will accept.
China initially had high hopes at the start of the Lee administration, but despite stressing pragmatic, national interest-based diplomacy, Lee prioritized a summit with Japan and reaffirmed its alliance with Washington. That likely displeased Beijing.
For now, Seoul said it will continue strengthening the South Korea-US alliance while pursuing mature relations with China, while requesting Beijing play a more constructive role in Korean Peninsula affairs. And in terms of North Korea diplomacy, Seoul officials have cautioned against premature optimism, warning that Pyongyang shows no signs of abandoning its nuclear program. Of course, while South Korea and the US say they remain committed to reviving dialogue with Pyongyang, both allies maintain their push for the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula.
The Victory Day parade presented a very complicated reality indeed. All right, thanks for coming in today, Seung. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.